This week on the Storycraft Society, we're going to be talking about how to use the terrain that we've built to set up better scenes for our combats in D&D. Let's jump into it. Welcome back to the channel, everybody. My name is Garmin, and of course, this is the Storycraft Society coming at you for another Thursday episode. And this week's episode is going to be something that I'm actually really excited to talk about and something that I've been thinking about a lot off camera recently. And so to start this off, I'm going to ask a question. Has this ever happened to you? So you're getting ready for your game of D&D. You know that a combat is coming, so you pull out your perfect, most favorite battle mat. So then you start going crazy, building this epic scene that's going to be the centerpiece, the show off, this great visual that will accompany your awesome combat. And you're so excited for your players to get into it. And maybe even when they sit down at the table, they ooh and ah over this amazing battle map that you've set up. And then the combat starts. And all they do is fight in the farthest corner of the map. And your players never leave that one singular corner. I don't think as a crafting DM there is anything that is more frustrating than when I've spent an hour building this super epic, cool battle scene for them to just stay in this one little pocket of it. Wargaming absolutely handles this super well, and I have no idea about wargaming. It's not something that I have any expertise in whatsoever, so I'm not gonna talk about that. I'm gonna talk about my thought process just based around D&D. So in my opinion, I think there are two ways to use terrain in D&D. The first one is exploration. This is gonna be like a dungeon crawl where your players are going room to room to room to room, and you are laying out the terrain so that they can see where they've been and have a good visual representation of where they're going. A good example of this is the players enter the room. There are 3 exits out of the room. Here is what's in the room. Your players now have a good visual representation of that. The second is going to be to enhance our combat, and that's what this video is going to be focused on. Actually, I mean, if I'm gonna be honest, there is a third. The third one is you just have a whole bunch of cool terrain that you've made and you wanna flex and show how awesome all of it is. So you just put it out, not necessarily to enhance any part of your game, but because you know it's awesome and you need other people to see that it's awesome, and then they can tell you how awesome it is and you know that it's all awesome. Yeah, I don't think that's a good way to put out your terrain, although sometimes that's what we need. So if you just wanna show it off, do it. I don't think that it helps a game, though. All that said, we're talking number 2, how to enhance our combats. So next thing we're gonna jump into is I'm gonna build a bad battle mat, and then we're gonna talk about why I think it's a bad battle mat. Time lapse time, let's go. All right, so the scene I have set up is a little road encounter. So the players are going to travel along this road here. As they're gonna be traveling up the road, a group of bandits will come out of the woods. Maybe one comes around back here, one steps out with a bow here. To me, this looks good. It looks impressive, and I feel like both as a DM and a player, when I would sit down to this encounter, I would be like, whoa. Well, let me tell you exactly how this is going to play out. The melee characters, whoever goes first, are going to engage. So let's just say, on average, they move like this. The rogue character will probably run and try to attack one of these bow fighters. The halfling bard, probably maybe even just back up to like there. They are gonna slug it out until they kill the 2. They are gonna slug it out till he kills him. The rogue will run around here maybe to get to this guy, and that's where the battle will end. And I could have had the exact same encounter on an 8-inch by 11-inch sheet of paper, and absolutely nothing will change because all they did was move into one another, attack. I don't blame necessarily the encounter for that, but the problem is that the players have no reason to run into the woods. It basically makes it that the players don't have to make any choices. So in my opinion, The time that I spent setting up this battle mat, other than looking pretty, was a waste. So with that all being said, if we're going to consider this a bad battle mat, can we make this now a lot better of an encounter using the terrain that we have? I think we can. So that's what we're gonna do. Time lapse time. Hey everybody, sorry for interrupting the video. I just wanted to take a quick second and remind you that we now have a merchandise store. So if you want to support the channel financially, that would go such a long way. Thank you so much. You can pick up anything from the links in the description below. But other than that, if you want to support the channel in non-financial ways, you can like this video, you can leave me a comment down below, and you can also subscribe to the channel if you haven't done that. That goes a super long way also. So with all that said, he's tired. With all that said, let's jump back to the video. All right, so same encounter, same bad guys, same situation. The players are traveling down a road alongside of a creek, and then there is going to be a bandit ambush that happens from the woods. Now, what is different? Well, I will say I did add one piece. I added the Goblin Bridge from Cragmaw Hideout. That's the only thing that I added. But I moved the players to the opposite side of the water, and I added some of the bandits on one side, other bandits on the other. Now what has to happen is when the players are traveling down the road, when the thugs step out, they now have options. They have a bunch of options. The melee characters can engage, but basically the thugs have blocked the only access to the archers who are now standing on this side. Now the other players have an interest in gaining cover because they can't access the bow fighters. Now the rogue could certainly try to jump in the water and swim across. That's dangerous. The rogue could try to run past and get to the bridge, also dangerous. It also provokes opportunity attacks, potentially from the thugs, or they could all focus their efforts here and just take the fire. The bard now could cast spells to try and deal with this group. So even then, if the thugs start to get low on hit points, now what they can do is they can run back across the bridge. It gives them a reason to want to run and then reset up here. Now the players have to come across one at a time, single file. All these are options that now just by tweaking the map a little bit, I've got all these cool potential outcomes of my combat, and it's now going to take place in a much larger area of the battle map. So right now I'm going to take a second to tear this down, and then we're going to start talking about specific things that you can do with your terrain that will greatly enhance your combats. So I think the key to setting up a better scene comes down to two things. The first one is, does the terrain force your players to make decisions? Two, does it challenge your players in a way other than just the monster or enemy that they're fighting? So we're gonna look at a couple examples of both of these. So using our example from before, the players had to decide how are they going to get across the water to get to the archers. This way, even a low CR bandit just with a light crossbow is really dangerous across that river because there's not a lot that the players can do to try and deal with them. Obviously, a shootout could ensue, but again, isn't there something in that also? Now the players aren't just running up and smacking the thing over the head, now they're making the decision to try and get cover and go for a shootout. It's a different type of encounter. So obviously in a video like this, I can't cover every single option out there. That's what makes D&D such a fun game. The options are literally endless. But I can give you a couple of clear-cut examples of how I use my terrain to create these kinds of challenges and decision making. The first one is going to be high ground. Putting your enemies on high ground or having your PCs on high ground drastically changes the feel of an encounter. And I think that it's a bad idea to always give your enemies the high ground and never let your players get the opportunity to use that to their advantage. It's got to go both ways. But having the high ground versus not having the high ground really changes the feel of an encounter. So using this hill as an example, if the bad guys are up on top of this cliff face, the players have to choose to either get into a shootout with them at long range, or they have to run all the way up this zigzaggy path to try and get to them, which is dangerous basically the whole time. It really makes some options happen. Now, to make that even more interesting is put some of your enemies down on the ground level with them. Now the players have to choose. Do we split up? Do we focus on the enemies down below? decisions are happening. Challenges are happening other than just how do we put these enemies down as quickly as possible. Another one that's really similar to high ground is cliff face. And I'm using cliff face as like an umbrella term because cliff face to me is the same as lava pool nearby, as acid pool nearby, as someone could push you and the result would be really bad for your team. In this example, you put all of your enemies up on top of a cliff. So now your PCs have to make a decision. Do they run in and then have to challenge the bad guys, potentially throwing them off the edge of the cliff? Or maybe your players try to throw the bad guys off of the cliff. There's cool options there, but it's decision making. That's dangerous. Again, if you describe the bandits that are up on top of this edge as really brawny and they look like bruisers, like they could really muscle you around, the low strength characters in your party are probably not going to challenge that cliff's edge. That automatically acts as a little bit of invisible protection for your bad guys. That's not even including if, for example, you would put some kind of super strong monster on the edge. That's literally the challenge, is this thing, its entire combat strategy is smashing into somebody and knocking them back 10 feet. Cliff face, or lava's edge, or acid's edge, or water's edge, these are all options that really can challenge your players in that regard. Repositioning is another really fun one. This is one where if you have traps set up in like a wizard's lair, that if the players accidentally trip the trap, then they're gonna end up getting repositioned somewhere, and it could be a really inopportune place. I mean, let's think about an example where the players accidentally trip up this trap and end up in a cage. And now they're stuck in this cage while the rest of their party members are all fighting around them, either trying to get them out or not being able to get them out. That repositioning could really go a long way and make the combat a lot more exciting. And that leads me into, again, decision making and challenges other than the monster that you're fighting. That wizard is doing everything it can to spread your party out, and now the rogue has to make a choice. Do I get my cool, super massive amount of sneak attack damage on this wizard, or I'm the one who can pick the lock? Do I run over to the cage and try to unlock the cage for the bard? This is the level of decision making and challenges that you can get from your terrain if you look for those opportunities. The last type that I'm gonna bring up in this video is kind of a common one, but I think an underused one, which is the pinch point. If we go back to the bandit ambush on the road example, the bridge created a pinch point where once the bandits are over it, the players have to funnel single file in, and it makes it really hard for them to do anything other than just try and push through. Pinch points are a really good way to make decision making happen. Who goes first? Do you send someone in? Do you try to pull them out? You could use spells like command, come, to try and bring the bandits back through the pinch point. I say bandits, I mean monsters, anything like that. But that's what makes a good battle scene, in my opinion, that it just forces decisions and extra challenges for your players. One thing that's really cool about all this that I've heard newer DMs complain about is that they can't appropriately challenge their players when they're at higher levels, that they're basically stuck doing super high level monsters. And I think that that's a really good time for this stuff to come into play. You can look at a monster that's a low-level monster and see what they're really good at. Again, using the strength example, if they're really good at pushing, put them next to a cliff. That's gonna make them infinitely more dangerous than if there was no cliff nearby. This is a way you can challenge your higher level PCs in the same way that you challenge them in lower levels, except now it's decisions that are challenging them and not necessarily who is gonna go down first. But with all that said, I hope that this information is useful for all you DMs out there. I just feel like terrain is such a versatile tool that when we're building it, we want to get the most use out of it. And again, I think that just it looking pretty, that's just one side of the coin. There is the other side, which is using it to make your combats more engaging. And I would like to see myself do that more, and I think maybe that's the centerpiece of this video. It's me telling myself that I can do this more often than I do. Don't just set up a cool scene. Set up a cool scene that's also challenging. Thank you so much for watching. We have a merchandise store. That's all gonna be linked in the description below. So if you wanna support the channel because you enjoy the content, we would love to have any support that you'd be willing to give us. But if you want to support us in non-financial ways, which is just as amazing. You can like this video, you can leave a comment down below of some of your favorite ways to use terrain. You can subscribe if you haven't done that yet. I know that about 40% of the channel's viewers have not subscribed, so if you're one of those people, we would love to have you subscribe. It's totally free, it doesn't cost you anything, and if you don't like the content for some reason, you could always unsubscribe, but I think you're gonna be enjoying the content that we continue to put out. But other than that, I've got nothing else to say other than it's time for the craft of the day. Let's jump into it. So today's craft of the day actually comes from Rundar Ralnor. I'm actually not positive I'm saying that right, so if I'm not, I am so sorry. But the craft of the day for this week is so sick. So we're gonna start by just playing this video. It is a convertible airship sailing ship. And look at this sweet, like light up, you know, the steam smoke coming from below the deck of the ship. This is so cool. I have basically no lights in any of my builds, so that's amazing. Looking at that, I mean, man, I can't say how cool that is. So now we can start to see some stationary photos. You get an idea of the size. My guess is it's probably like 6 or so inches across. I really like the detail of the door going down in. I also am amazed as to how the ropes are staying up, because I would assume that they're what's holding the balloon up, but then I'm not 100% sure how that would work, but that's so neat. Just a little bit better view of the door here in the back. Ooh, the handle looks really sick also. That's awesome. Super neat. Looks like there's some actually like gold scrolling on the side of the ship. Hopefully we'll get to, oh yes, that's so cool. So again, that's another thing I would be really interested. I wonder if that's like 3D printed, but that's really neat. So now it says it's convertible into a sailing ship also. I wonder if there's gonna be any pictures of it as a sailing ship. Oh man, yeah, there it is. Oh, and look at the sick windows in the back. All the gold detail is, oh man. This is so cool. Honestly, I really like the blue, like, I'm not even sure what kind of fabric that is, but like to be the water. That's so cool. Oh, look at the little crow's perch, crow's nest? Crow's nest sounds right, but when I said it, it sounded weird. Yeah, I mean, wow, Rundar, this is so cool. Honestly, y'all didn't need to flex on me like this. I'm over here just like building little dungeons and stuff, and you come out with convertible airship and sailing ship? Man, I gotta up my game, I suppose. Wow. All right, well, that's gonna be it for this week's craft of the day. If you would like to have yours featured here, definitely tag Storycraft Society on either Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook. But for now, this will be it. Man, this is so cool. All right, until next week, I'll be seeing you.